Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. We are back. We had a nice little break here. There's a lot of stuff going on personally with myself and Devin, but we're here. We're going to talk about the last last few regionals. But as I mentioned before, I am here, and so is Devin. Devin, why don't you say hello to everyone?
Hey guys, hopefully everyone had a good little bit of summer. I know a lot of people are dealing with the beginning of school and all those changes that has for all of us. And like you said, Dean, there were three regionals over the last couple of weeks, and it really wrapped up the Scarlet and Violet era pretty well and pretty, I would say, by the book, right? There's no real surprises with these regionals, and we'll be able to digest these regionals, look forward to the new set, see what Japan's doing, and kind of talk about what we think the next quarter of Pokemon is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as we mentioned while we were gone, Pokemon actually started. The new season is back. And yeah, we are wrapping up the Scarlet and Violet block. As those who don't know, the Mega set that's coming out, Mega Evolutions, is a brand new block. So the kind of think of it as a new game per se, because it is based on the new Legends ZA game that will be coming out later in October. It's just we're kind of playing with those cards early before the game comes out. But before we go into any of the regional stuff, Devin, how has have you done anything new with Pokemon lately to catch us up on?
So, I mean, I've been theory crafting a lot of Mega lists. I can't wait for it to go live later this week, the time of recording. And
Mm-hmm.
then I I shiny hunt a lot, and you know that. I'm working on the shiny living decks, and I think since we last recorded, I've gotten three full art shinies. So like that's what
Nice.
I've been doing, and then obviously the shiny legendaries of the Scarlet Violet with the Chi Yu and the Ting Lu coming out, it's different things like that. But that's what I've done. Like we both talked about, I don't do the TCG in person. It's really if I'm not on the computer, I'm not playing it. So I shiny hunt, but I'm ready to go. Like I'm excited for Mega Evolution. I have a notebook full deck list that I'm excited to show off in the upcoming months. But what about you? What have you done in the last couple weeks?
So last week, my local card shop actually did another Rogue Deck night. It's becoming one of our favorite formats where I'm at in Tampa. So I'm really excited about that. Typically, I go maybe top four, but actually took one of our creations, the Copperajah EX deck, and I went 4-0 and won the whole entire thing. So I'm really excited about that.
That's good. And then you're talking like with the road deck stuff. Like obviously these regional results actually will impact that road deck night now because there's some decks that basically broke through in the last little bit of the Scarlet and Violet era, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we're digesting the three results in a couple minutes.
Yeah, at my card shop, we have a rule. Anything that made top 32 or better is on the ban list. We just do that to help let other decks shine. Because if you're playing something that's only been like maybe top 16 to 30, like if we do top 16 or better, you still have a lot of those overpowered decks compared to like when you think of a rogue deck. It doesn't really have a good balance system. So it's our best way of really developing a more or less balanced format. Granted, it's like sometimes you just get a deck or get a player that does really well and goes on a hot streak. And as you can tell, that happened with a couple of these events. So I think we should start with let's start with Monterrey because that's something we're all used to with the regional. Um, it is technically considered a LATAM regional, but a lot of North American players showed up and they showed up big time.
Yeah, like Monterrey, Mexico is not far away for Canada and American players to go. It's not far away for Latin American players to go fly up. Mexico is a very good central point. Has a lot of
Mm-hmm.
really good areas that players could play. And to no one's surprise, this was a tournament that was dominated by Gardevoir. And I say
Yeah.
that really with the focus of where it was geographically located, with it being near the North American, Latin American regions. That, let's just be honest, us over here in the North American continent, we're not creative, and we kind of see that a little bit of the lack of diversity in the top 8 and even just in the day 2 pool in general.
Yeah, the top 2 were Gardevoirs, of course, with Henry Chow, who is known to play that deck. And I wouldn't say he's a newcomer. We've seen his name a little bit more, but so far this season, as we'll talk about with Pittsburgh, he is making a big splash in the TCG community. And the Monterrey Regional was won by Aban Ahmed. Again, not a newcomer, but he hasn't had that breakout performance. And he did with Monterrey. He won the whole thing with Gardevoir. So congratulations to him taking the whole entire event. But yeah, in the top 8, 4 of the 8 are Gardevoir, 2 are Tera Box, and then there's 2 Charizard decks, one being Dragapult Charizard and the other one being a traditional Charizard Pidgeot. So as you said, like, not that diverse. It's more of the expected big bad guys that we're seeing do well in the tournament. And of course, you see the Dragapults in day 2. You see a couple of the outsiders coming in, like Enzork. Raging Bolt made an appearance. But I will say, in the top 16, someone did well with Iron Thorns, showing that Iron Thorns is not a dead deck.
No, and Iron Thorns is always going to be live as long as it's standard legal with the amount of ability-based attackers we have in the format. And just Quad Thorns is just so good that... But it has to be in the right meta. And I think right now is the right meta. I don't think Quad Thorns gets better with Mega Evolution coming up.
I think you're right. This was more or less a medical, because it just turns off abilities. I know this deck very well when I play my Cloth Tropicos or Poison Tropicos.
Turns off Rulebox, sorry.
Yeah, Rulebox, in which my deck was completely Rulebox. I was very Rulebox reliant. So with having Charizard where you can accelerate the energy, where you have Ogerpon Box or Tera Box that plays a lot of abilities, Cornerstone is turned off, Pikachu's turned off, Lillie's Clefairy's turned off. Granted, that didn't really matter with Iron Thorns, but like Teal Mask Ogerpon is turned off, and that's a big deal against Raging Bolt. So you see these decks being slowed down. Marnie's Grimmsnarl is turned off, so you can't use Punk Up to accelerate your energy. So I think it was a nice medical, and if it is, I wouldn't say it's a control deck, but it is definitely a disruption deck, and if you don't know how to play around that, or you don't have much around a deck like Iron Thorns, a player won't know what to do. And a lot of it probably comes from experience with dealing with decks like that. And since Iron Thorns hasn't been around, we're not thinking about playing and getting ready for a deck like that when we go to a major tournament like Monterrey, Frankfurt, or Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, when players are building their deck lists and kind of crafting out their counters, right? It's one of those situations where, are you thinking of the Mimikyus? Are you thinking about the Cornerstone Mask? Are you thinking about my Lodic Girafarig? Are you thinking about Iron Thorns? And a lot of players are not thinking about any of those that I just listed, even though you probably should just have a counter just in case. And obviously, the more established decks, like the Gardevoir has a natural counter to it. The Dragapult can manipulate its way around it. There is ways that the top decks naturally already have those counters just built into their deck lists, but not every deck does. There's some decks that just have the central strategy, and if Thorns is in front of it, it can't operate. So I don't think that you need to plan for Iron Thorns, but I think having that natural counter in your deck that goes around those walls, so the Mimikyu, the Iron Thorns, the Cornerstones, you should just have a one-off attacker that can be sustained when you're running into those matchups for sure. And that Iron Thorns kind of shows its head in this tournament, being like, yeah, don't forget about this type of deck. because if you're not ready for it, we can capitalize it. A top 16 is definitely capitalizing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember when in Japan, those wall decks were doing really well when rotation hit, and when we went to Atlanta, it was nowhere to be seen. So we're just so used to not playing against wall. So I think this player took great advantage of the lack of experience that their opponents had. If you're not expecting to play against a wall style deck or never won against one before, the more experienced player will win out in that. So it was really cool to see Iron and Thorns make its appearance once again. Granted, not in the top 8, but it got top 16, which is still respectable for a large tournament like this.
Yeah, and then we saw that Typhlosion got top 64. We saw that Crustle got top 64. We saw that Roaring Moon got top 64. So we're seeing some good fringe level decks really be able to flirt with those top tables on a day 2 of a pretty big regional. We're talking Monterrey still had 1,600 players. So it's one of those situations where I really do think Typhlosion is a deck that can survive in the future format of Mega Evolution. I think Crustle was well positioned in this format. I don't know if it's going to be that great for Mega Evolution, but it might. But it's one of those situations where, again, if you're not prepared for these type of decks, they can take advantage of the meta call. And I think these players with Crustle and Typhlosion definitely took advantage of a very primed meta pool. With, honestly, with Typhlosion particularly, there's a lot of Golden Go kind of floating around right now. And just being weak to fire is easy for them.
Oh yeah, I've been very hype on Typhlosion from the get go. Those who know me, that's my go-to deck right now in my league. Whenever I do play. But yeah, I think with the amount of Golden Go, or even just like amount of decks that rely on attackers in that 200 to 300 range, you can take the 2 prizes and you're forcing them to go pure single prize. Again, I'm not really hype on putting that many multi-prizers in Typhlosion. I've seen lists with Pidgeot EX. I've seen lists with the Fezandipiti. I see the reason why they're in there, and I went to a cup, and that player did the best out of all the Typhlosion decks. Personally, if I'm going to play a single prize deck, I'm limiting my multi-prize Pokemon to 1 if I can. And it better have a really good reason why it's in there. But yeah, I think with Mega Evolution coming out, I think Typhlosion is in a decent spot. It does one-shot a lot of those basic meta Mega Evolution cards. You can easily do 290, if not more than that, depending on how many Victinis you play. You have the Brave Bengals, so that helps out with your attack power as well. But once we get to the stage 1, stage 2 megas, I'm not sure if it can outrun it. But we'll see where that goes. We got a couple weeks till Mega Evolution is tournament legal, so we'll see how that plays out. But I think Typhlosion is a really good deck. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of those fringe rogue decks that are fine for the top 32 or even better position in these tournaments. It just needs to take those players that are dedicated to really learn the lines and learn their outs and take it to a tournament versus just taking something will do well, like Golden Go, Dragapult, Raging Bolt. So we'll see how that goes. But I think there's a continent in the TPCI region that's not afraid to experiment and bring those wacky decks to a major tournament.
No, absolutely not. And that's why I absolutely love, and I always put more attention to tournaments in EUIC than I do in North America. And I think that on the same week in Frankfurt, right, in Germany, had a much more diverse day 2, had a much more diverse top 64, top 32 as well. Now, it was run by Gardevoir. And then the final was Gardevoir Dragapult. So not really diverting too far away from the top tables, from that meta calls. But that's perfectly fine. I think the the deck of the tournament, or the darling of the tournament, I think, was uh, one of two decks. First one was this Dragapult Blaziken deck that ran a Monkey Dory in there, where the Blaziken just accelerated energy where it needed to go, which I thought was brilliant on that synergy piece. But the other darling of the tournament was Conkeldurr for sure.
Yeah, I was watching this on and off, and all of a sudden, round it was like 6 or 7 came on, and there was an undefeated Conkeldurr on stream. I'm like, whoa, this is awesome! And then he won his dream match, and then I'm like, okay, I know he made day 2 because he went like 6-0. At that point, you're making day 2. And I'm like, okay, I wonder how well he did. I'm like, oh, okay, he made top 32. I guess he kind of ran into people that understood the deck a little more. And lo and behold, he wasn't even the best Conkeldurr player. There was a Conkeldurr player that made top 16 at 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whoa, we knew about this one player, but no one talked about the other Conkeldurr player.
Yeah, it's just
like, yeah, it was. I thought that was great.
Yeah, and it's the fact that this deck had 2 really good pilots. It's a deck that's been around for a while, obviously. It's just no one was willing to take it to the tournament. Maybe it wasn't in a format that really could take advantage of it. Being a fighting Pokemon right now is actually very good, believe it or not. Being a single prize fighting Pokemon is even better, because as much as Gardevoir is dominating the meta right now, Gardevoir is still only taking 1 prize from you. And you can just set up, you're like, all right, fine, you can take 1 prize from me. I hit you twice, and we're even on price trade. I hit you once, and I'm ahead. So that mindset of being willing to play from behind, willing to give up a prize here and there, as long as you're able to stream your attackers, you're good to go. And I think Conkeldurr does that very well. And I think we talked about it. It being a fighting type means it honestly just gets better with the new sets and new cards coming out, because it gets the attack boost cards that it needs. It's getting the search that it needs. And it still can keep its own identity just by kind of fluffing up some of the middle pieces or early game pieces that it really is maybe needing in the early game. Late game, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly positioned. So I'm interested to see how much this Conkeldurr is going to grow with Mega cards coming in, and that Mega set really beefing up that fighting type.
Yeah, because right now it really relies on binding Mochi, Brave Charm, the Gravity Mountain to really get to that damage that it needs. Because for those who don't know, I would strongly take a look in our earlier episodes of this podcast, because Conkeldurr was actually the first deck we featured. We saw the potential in it, and we thought it was really fun. You do 250, but if Conkeldurr is affected by a special condition, it can attack for no energy. So that's what makes it really strong. But like, how do you get that poison there? Well, you need the Brute Bonnet. So there's a lot of good synergistic cards, and it's really easy to get into play. But it still relies on a lot of attack like modifiers. But if we can get an item card that does it for us instead of having a tool, we can boost up our damage and really take out some of those megas that when they come into play, you're taking 3 prizes and they're taking 1. That even helps with that prize trade even more. Right now, it's really good in the prize trade. Just imagine you're taking 3 and they're only taking 1. You only have to knock out 2 Pokemon and you win the game.
Yep.
So I think Conkeldurr is in a really good spot. Again, we are very hype on the single prize decks, but this was definitely a meta call. And I think once we talk about Pittsburgh, you can see where the results of this tournament really affects what people played and what certain decks made day 2 as well. Yeah,
and then another interesting deck that you pointed out was also a top 16 deck, which was Greninja EX. So that's making an appearance again. Greninja's always kind of poked around the top 64, top 32, especially in Europe. But Greninja, Dusknoir, Pidgeot, pieces that just make sense. And Greninja is such a low to the ground attacker, where we've seen it paired in the past with Blaziken. But this now it just is kind of more or less just attacking for a single energy. You're really not ever putting 3 energy on the Greninja. Yes, it runs ignition energy, but like you're only doing that once or twice in a game.
Yeah, it's really there to knock out those setup decks. Like if you can get it set up first, use ignition and kind of like slow down your opponent for sure. But yeah, doing the first attack for 170, which again is not a low number at all, and then being able to get a card from your deck and just put it in your hand, like you're forcing your opponent to Iono you at that point or hand disrupt you in some way. So you're more or less, it's, I wouldn't say it's a hand disruption card, but you're forcing your opponent to make a decision on what type of supporter to play. And
Yeah.
if they don't play Iono, cool, you're set up for next turn. You can do whatever. So this is, like you said, it's been on the fringe for a while. It's always had some top placements, but hasn't seen a top 16 or top 8. And of course, it got a top 16 in Frankfurt. And it's just a nice breath of fresh air compared to seeing the same decks over and over again at these top tables. And then, of course, we go to Europe and they turn that on their head and like, nope, we can make whatever deck work. If we want to play it so bad, we'll make a good run from it.
Yeah, and I think again, it's a mix of meta analysis, a mix of a lot of risk taking players. So like Fabian Pujol is the one who piloted the Dragapult Blaziken into the highest finish. Very well established player. He probably was looking at how can I make Dragapult just turn the corner a little bit, and he was able to put in a Monkey Door and a Darkness Energy with a Blaziken, and was really able to kind of put some pieces together from a different perspective of Dragapult. Because Dragapult by itself is good, and if you can just take it to the next level, that would be even better. But cards like Greninja EX, Conkeldurr, I mean, this is where we really saw the beginnings of Gardevoir Jellicent becoming archetype, right? We knew it was a list from Japan, but it really didn't break through at Worlds. It didn't break through at Monterrey, but it was breaking through at Frankfurt. And I think the Jellicent Gardevoir archetype really getting that exposure really led into some of the results we saw in Pittsburgh just the next weekend after.
Yeah, and I think that's a good transition to go into what happened this past weekend in Pittsburgh. Of course, a massive tournament, almost 2,700 masters at the in this, and lo and behold, it was not won by Gardevoir.
No, but Gardevoir definitely made a showing in that tournament.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it did. In the top cut, it was 4 out of the 10 decks, with 3 of them being paired with Jellicent EX.
And the Jellicent EX wasn't a kind of an archetype of Buddy that where everyone was talking about as the world's play. Is this the new version of Gardevoir? And it didn't really make much of an appearance at Worlds, but it made a little bit of appearance in Monterrey and in Frankfurt, and then Pittsburgh really put it on the map, where I think that exposure from the previous week gave players the results that they needed, either be more confident in putting it in the matchup or was able to tweak it and optimize it just perfectly to where it really did make an appearance. We talked about Aban Ahmed. He won Monterrey. His Gardevoir list did not have Jellicent. Became runner-up in Pittsburgh, and he shifted his list to the Jellicent list. So we're seeing that manipulation, that adjustments that the archetype is doing, and seeing the new version of Gardevoir right now, and we may see a new version of Gardevoir in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think the Jellicent play is in the Jellicent transition is very crucial, because one thing I just thought of was like, okay, yeah, it's item lock, but it's also tool lock. So that means you can't play your Bravery Charms. It means you can't play your Brave Bangles. You can't play your Ancient Booster Capsules. So seeing that Conkeldurr list do kind of pop off, and it kind of has a decent Gardevoir matchup-ish if you get everything on your board. If you can slow them down by like, okay, I can't take out the Brute Bonnet, but what I can do is prevent the Brute Bonnet from getting the booster capsule on there, and then it can't activate the ability, then I'm forced into Conkeldurr to get all the energy, and I know they don't play all the energy in that list. That shuts down that whole entire archetype. And then there's other decks that rely on tools for their for their boost. Like Typhlosion needs a Brave Bengal to really hit those numbers. Dusknoir and a lot of decks are relying on air balloons. Goldango relies on air balloon. So if you can prevent the tool attachment, you just get a one up already. And then we're also talking about item lock as well. So like that 1-2 punch just adds a lot more stamina and a lot more oomph into that Gardevoir list. Granted, it didn't need it, but now it's just that I would say it's an S tier deck with a Jellicent.
Yeah, and also the Jellicent also prevents those early to mid game TM evolution plays to kind of help an opponent restabilize their board. Sometimes attacking without damage doesn't always feel great, but when you're kind of restabilizing, that TM evolution is a great move. Shuts that down. You shut down TM Energize for some of the decks that try to be turbo. If you're just one turn faster than them, you get to shut them down. So shutting down the items is very important, and shutting down the tools, I think, is even more important, especially with the stabilization strategies that we see in these top level decks. Now, you don't have to be playing the game long to understand that item lock is bad when you're on the other end of it. And item lock has always been prevalent in Pokemon. It just has been seeing different versions of it. So now that Gardevoir has a partner that it can accelerate on, it can slow the game down. You and I were talking before this about how Gardevoir Jellicent is kind of skirting around what this idea of best of 3 means now, where you're not winning 2 games anymore. You're winning 1 game and going to time, and you're winning 1-0. So, and it's not by going and taking super long turn over turn. It's slowing the game down to where they're okay with doing 80 damage a turn because they're not getting any back. And if they do, they have the Monkey Dory to push anything off.
And I think that's important to actually kind of touch on again, is that with this season, we are in a new way of doing NF turns. So those who've been to regionals or really any tournament, even on the local level, when time is called, it's usually 0 and then 1, 2, and 3. So you get 3 extra turns. That's no more, even at the local level. Once time is called, the overtime clock automatically starts. So you get 10 minutes for the player 0 to conclude their turn. And then player 1 gets a reactionary turn, so a +1. And that's all you get.
Yeah.
So like Devin was saying, we were talking, is there a strategy to where you play a game where you draw out game 1 legally? Because it's not like you're taking long turns or stalling on purpose. You can just draw out the game and take a 35, 40-minute game 1, leave 10 minutes for game 2, and because you won game 1 and you can't conclude game 2, you get the win. Is that something we're seeing more? Or are we just going to see more ties because you don't have the 2 turns to finish out a game like we used to compared to last season?
Yeah, and I think moving toward the Mega Evolution meta, I think Mega Evolution accelerates the format, so hopefully that isn't an issue. But we really don't have much of a sample size because Japan only operates in a best of 1. So it's really hard to see and tell from their results how much of it is accelerated, how much of it's slowed down. But also in Japan, I haven't seen much of a Gardevoir dominance like we're seeing now in the West. So it's really hard to see what that evolution is going to become.
And it's also, they don't do ties. If you tie, if it's a double game loss, you'll see on stream, they'll go and kind of talk about like, okay, who has the better board state, and whoever has the weaker board state will concede and give their opponent the win, because it's better to give them the win than both of them the loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about kind of like what we're seeing in Japan for that mega set in a couple more minutes. I just really want to finish up Pittsburgh's conversation a little bit because, as we talked about, these are the last 3 events of the Scarlet and Violet era before we go into this new Mega Evolution era. Before we kind of turn the page and get 100+ new cards. And there is a lot of things that we can take away from these 3 tournaments where we talked about North America really not adjusting and changing since Worlds. Europe is willing to change and kind of play around with the format. Now, we talked about the dominance of Gardevoir. Gardevoir is really good, and Gardevoir is getting a poster boy card in Mega Gardevoir coming up. So I guess the question really is, what will Gardevoir look like in 2 weeks' time in Brazil and in Milwaukee? Will we see Gardevoir Jellicent, or will we see a different version of Gardevoir?
Honestly, I think it's a mixture of both. A lot, even with the lists in Japan, they're not really changing too much. The most they'll get is, I think they'll add one Mega Gardevoir in their list, and that's it. They're pretty much staying the same, but at the same time, why would you change? It's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Gardevoir is so powerful. And then going into like we said, we're going into the meta form or the mega format. Why would you want to put a 3 prize liability when your single prizers are super strong? You're hardly ever attacking with Gardevoir EX. Like, your Dreamtail, your Drifloon, all your other Pokemon can carry the weight and carry the load for you. Why put a 3 prize liability unless you just need it for like tanking a shot or something?
I think I disagree with the fact you're calling Mega Gardevoir a liability. I think it's more of, do you need to put a 3 prizer in the deck at all? I don't think it's a bad card. And if you put a one-off Mega Gardevoir in most current builds of Gardevoir, you're not making the deck worse. You could argue you're making it better, but you're not making it worse. I don't know if putting that thing on your bench is a liability in any way, shape, or form. It has 2 single prize attacks, one that can accelerate your bench, the other one that can just hit for a whole bunch of damage. It has very high HP numbers, so like you said, it could tank a hit if it needs to and absorb that punishment. And because you're running multiple Monkey Dory, you're just passing 60 to 90 of it back. I just don't think the prize mapping makes sense for Gardevoir. Now, I do think other archetypes that we're seeing right now can benefit from gaining a 3 prizer, from gaining a very powerful Mega. I do agree. I do think that's the case. I think Gardevoir is one of the few decks in the format, as this moment, pre-rotation, that doesn't need a 3 prizer because it already can hit like a 3 prizer. And if you do add that 3 prizer, you're doing it because of maybe a meta call you're seeing around where maybe you need that 50 times multiplier to end the game, and you can just withstand a hit that's higher than what a Gardevoir can't, or what a Fezandipiti can't, or what a Monkey Dory. Like, you're kind of just taking those mathematical assessments there. I think calling it a liability is really just saying, I don't like the fact that I have a 3 prizer in my deck, and I don't think it needs a 3 prizer in the deck.
No, I agree with you. Will the deck be bad if we put Mega Gardevoir EX in there? No, it's still going to be super strong. But as you said, it doesn't really need it. It can do well, and it will do well one way or another. It's just preferential. Do you want to try out the Mega EX, or do you want to stay on with what's proven to be good? So we'll see how players kind of test, play around, and once the 2 tournaments come up with the Mega set in there, we'll see what players do.
I think the new stadium is going to be added to Gardevoir, that Mystery Garden Stadium. I think you're going to upgrade your Ralts from the current Ralts to the new Ralts because it has a collect attack. I don't know if the Kirlia is going to be switched out. I think the Kirlia is hit or miss. It really is a preferential thing because there's no real difference between the Kirlias. I think the deck can be upgraded from Mega Evolution cards, just not with the Mega Evolution.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think Lily's Determination will be a very good add in that list. Just so if you have a dead hand, Lily's Determination, shuffle your deck and get 8 cards if it's in the first couple turns, because you're not taking prizes right away.
Yeah, 6
Gardevoir loves to take prizes from behind.
Yeah, and I think Lily's Determination is going to probably be, if it is not it's going to be one of the top 3 most impactful cards from Mega Evolution set.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You need to get 4. that should be one of your things. If you're not pulling cards from packs, buy 4. Get it in your binder. It's gonna be in your decks for the next 3 years. Just get it now while it's cheap, while it's being printed very heavily. That way, if it does not get printed again in a couple of sets, you have your play set for the long term, for sure.
Yep.
So
So we talked about Gardevoir. What other decks do you think that we're seeing now gets either even better or what about even worse once the mega set becomes competitively viable?
I think Go gets better, but not because of anything that deck gains. I think the matchups for Go will get better because that resists grass, and I think grass is going to gain a lot more popularity with the Mega Set. I think Mega Venusaur, I think Meganium decks, so Meganium and Teal Mask Ogerpon, or Meganium Hydrapple, I think those decks will get stronger, which means the steel resistance to grass is even better. I think Go is just going to be better for a couple weeks or a couple months because I think with fire being introduced in the set after, Go is not going to enjoy it as much anymore. But yeah. I think Go is going to get a little better just from a better matchup spread, but not maybe from anything it's gaining.
So I've seen lists that play the Lunatone Soul Rock engine, just help churn through your deck more, get the energy in your discard just so you can use Lavencia or use Superior Energy Retrieval again to get that energy back. Also, just the fact that the power level is basically uncapped, you can one-shot any of the Mega Pokemon with ease. So, okay, yeah, they'll knock you out, but you're getting 3 prize cards. They're only getting 2. So I think, like you said, because of where the format's heading, I think it's just in a very advantageous position, and it's already good enough too. Like there's a bunch of different ways to play Gholdengo with the Joltik version versus the regular version, and I think it just gets better because of the positioning of that deck.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think another deck that potentially gets a little better. It's just so weird to say that Charizard gets better, but I think Charizard just doesn't get worse. Because I think Charizard is in a position where it's waiting a little longer for it to really get better. Because I think the Charmander and Charmeleon in the set that we're going to be getting in November can make Dark-type Charizard EX better, even though it's probably going to get replaced purely by Mega Charizard X. But I think, again, it kind of stabilizing. Now, I think Charizards are going to go Charizard Pidgeot instead of Charizard Dusknoir going forward because of the Psyduck. But I think Charizard is still positioned well enough to do well because it is a Dark-type Pokemon.
Dark, and it just hits hard. I think it's in a position where no one's really considering it when you come to your matchups. So when you're preparing for a tournament, you're not thinking about Charizard. So I think it's like coming out in the shadows, and it always does well, and everyone's always surprised it does well. But it's a great deck too. So I think it's just one of those it's just lurking in the corners. Like I'm not impacted by this set. I'm still gonna do well. I can still two-shot you while you're two-shotting me. So I think, like we said, kind of like Gholdengo, it's positional. It's in a great spot in the format where no one's caring about it until you're actually playing against it.
Exactly. Like whenever we do our deck videos and I'm running the ladder, right? Every single time I pop against Charizard, I go, why am I playing a Charizard still? It's been years. Why is everyone playing this deck? Because it's good. It's strong. It's consistent. It's just good. But I think Charizard also is going to be very wary of the grass. It's not going to like the rise of the grass attackers. So it's
that's where,
trade-off.
Yeah. I think one other deck that we need to talk about, just because it won the Yokohama Champions League this past weekend as well, is Tera Box. and I'm watching it, and I'm like, is that a Mega Mawile in Tera Box? I was not expecting that, but it makes sense because it's a great closer for that deck.
Yes. It's honestly a great closing card, period. I've seen some lists with Archelaudon EX adding a one-off Mega Mawile. It's a really good closer, and it's a card that you don't want in your opening hand. And if you're running a one-off, the likelihood of that being your only Pokemon in your opening hand is very, very low. It does not mind being prized. Because if it's one of your 4 prizes you're taking before you're finishing the game, that's great. Because it wants to show up after those 4 prizes have been taken. And it just needs the right acceleration partner. And both Tera Box and Archelaudon EX both accelerated to the perfect number where it can just get promoted and finish. So it's in a really good spot in terms of how it's designed. Because, yes, when we were talking about it in the set review, we're like, hey, this needs to find the right place. And I think players have figured it out with 2 different, very solid homes.
Yeah, I knew about Archelaudon. That made the most sense. I did not think about Tera Box because you're already playing the Metal Energy because of the Pikachu. So as long as you can find a way to attach one energy and then like move the other metal to it, you're hitting for 320, which is knocking out a lot of stuff right now. So yeah, I think that is a deck / even just card to look out for in the mega set. Like as long as you can play 2 metal energy or 2 ways to have metal attached to your Pokemon, I think Mega Mawile is something you need to be prepared for. You need to find a way to either get rid of it or not, or somehow like be ready for it to close out your opponent's game.
Yeah, and I think if you play the card right, your opponent's not going to be able to respond to you. Because you can put it in, accelerate it, promote it, finish. That's the ideal play. And both archetypes can do that very easily. So if you're a player of either deck, you don't want to put that card down until you're absolutely ready to use it. You don't want it on the playing field until you're absolutely ready to use it. And the only thing that's really threatening that card right now would be a future fire Pokemon. But then those archetypes really are just worried, or not really worried about fire in most matchups. So I think a lot of people slept on Mega Mawile. I think we did too. We were not the most hyped on it. We saw the potential, but we just weren't sure about it. And I think Mega Mawile might be the most improved card since a lot of people looked at the set, just because it had found the right spot.
Exactly. So we talked about some current decks that that will get better, potentially get better with the mega set. But what are some decks that are coming out of coming out and just making their appearance, being strong, and that we should be prepared for Milwaukee and the other regional that's happening in a couple weeks?
So I've talked a couple times about grass. I think Meganium, Mega Venusaur, and Teal Mask Ogerpon is a deck that is being worked on. I know some archetypes don't even add Teal Mask with the Mega Venusaur. The energy doubling, the energy acceleration, the movement of the energies. Grass is becoming better. Do I think we're going to see a Mega Venusaur Meganium list win either one of the regionals in 2 weeks? I don't think so, but I can definitely see a top 64 coming from a player who's willing to take that risk.
Yeah, I think that's a very good assumption for a deck like that. I'm expecting to see Lucario come out swinging.
Yeah, I can see that getting a top 8 for sure.
Oh yeah, like the first attack is accelerating energy from your discard onto your bench. The second attack can hit massive numbers. You have so much support, kind of like with grass. And we've been seeing it in Japan doing well too. It's either winning tournaments or it's constantly getting in the top 16 at these city leagues. I wish we had Yokohama, the data from Yokohama to really look at. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, we don't have that info. The only reason why I knew Tera Box 1 was I watched Azul's stream and I saw that. So But yeah, Mega Lucario I think is going to be a powerhouse coming out. And I think another deck that you and me are kind of, I wouldn't say super hype on, but we see a lot of potential is Mega Manetric.
Yes, and I think Manetric Eels or Manetric just being thrown in as a 1/1 line in Rhydon is a very interesting Pokemon to keep an eye on. Obviously, it has the fighting weakness. It has but it also has the potential immunity to basic Pokemon. So it can wall Raging Bolt. It can wall Terra Box. But it could lose very hard to Lucario. Like it's one of those kind of cards and deck archetypes that has to skip the right matchups to do well. Like if it can avoid Mega Lucario, I think it'll be great. But if it runs into too many Mega Lucario, and then it just kind of sits there being like, well, that sucks. Um, so I think that is a big factor for whether or not Mega Manetric's going to see a lot more play is the prevalence of that Mega Lucario deck. Because right now, Mega Manetric really is positioned otherwise very strongly. It has free retreat. It can get immunity. It's a low to energy attacker. It has eels to power itself up, and it can just slide into a pre-existing archetype. It is well positioned to kind of just make something already there just a little bit better.
Yeah, and we've been looking for an electric deck for a while. We all thought that Zekrom EX will save Miraidon, and we're not really seeing the results that we thought we were. Of course, Ross Cawthon took it and got top 64 at Pittsburgh with it. But it's Ross Cawthon. He is one of the best Pokemon players ever, making every single Worlds. When you have a pedigree like that, you can, whatever deck you touch will just do well. But yeah, it just we thought Miraidon was going to get a resurgence, which it did for a short period. So maybe Mega Manetric will kind of reinvigorate it again. Only time will tell.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a bad card. It's just I think it being in the same set as a very strong fighting card with strong fighting support is just not the set it wanted to be released in.
Yeah.
That's the problem for making it Manetric.
So I think it's good we're seeing how Japan is kind of shaping what we may expect at our first TPCI regionals. Obviously, only time will tell. Once these pro players get their hands on the mega set, they're going to play around with it. They're going to cook. We'll see what they bring, and we'll finally see maybe some variation in the meta, or even in the rogue decks at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
I know you and me have talked about over and over again. We are just thirsting for new decks, for variation in just competitive play because I was telling you earlier, anytime I'm watching the stream and I see, oh, it's Gardevoir versus Dragon Bolt, I'm switching. I'm turning it off. It doesn't interest me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in this format for such a long period of time where certain decks are just stale to watch from an entertainment perspective. Now, are they bad decks? Absolutely not. They're super high level decks, but sometimes, like you said, we can only watch Gardevoir Mirror, Dragapult Mirror, Dragapult Gardevoir kind of combination so many times before we're like, what can happen? But
Yeah.
a new set's coming out. It's going live this weekend on Live. We're going to have 10 new EX archetypes, a couple of non-EX archetypes that are just going to be put into our hands. And we're going to be playing around with decks. I know you and I have a spreadsheet of so many lists that we are just waiting to test and be able to get some videos ready to go. I know players are looking forward to being able to see what they can get for the two regionals, the one in Brazil and the other one in Milwaukee, and kind of just seeing what the 11th of October is going to give everybody, just so we can get a barometer of how much the meta is going to shift with these new cards.
But I heard there's an issue with the mega set. I know some areas won't get it. And also, like, a lot of the shops are selling these booster boxes, these packs at a very high cost.
Mm-hmm.
So, Devin, is there like a deck that I can play now and get like super familiarized and put my reps in to where if I am going to Milwaukee or going to a local, that I am prepared for and don't have to worry about getting my hands on any mega cards?
Yeah, outside of some of the lists we've already talked about, right? Like we can talk. You can just pick up Dragapult and go. You can pick up Gardevoir and go. If you're looking for something a little different, Flareon Noctowl is an engine that is very well established. And then with this week's Road Deck of the Week, I paired it up with a different partner than normal, and this would be Hydreigon EX. And it is both the old Tera Hydreigon and then one of the new non-Tera Hydreigon with the Greedy Eater ability. And to me, it almost the only thing that I changed from the list that I found was one singular card. It ran a single Lillie's Determination, and it should. A Lillie's Determination is a fantastic card. But if you don't get your hand on that card, just turn that into Iono. That's what I did for the Deck of the Week video for this week. So to kind of go over some of the cards just for individuals who have never played a Noctowl Flareon list before. So Flareon EX is a Stage 1 Tera Fire Pokemon that has an attack for a Fire Nicalis that does 130 and accelerates 2 energy to one of your Pokemon. The list that we're playing runs a whole bunch of different energies because Hydreigon EX, the Tera type, needs Psychic, Dark, and Metal. The Flareon EX needs Fire, Water, and Electric. And so you can see the fact that the Flareon can accelerate energy to anything on the bench based on the matchup. So if you want to accelerate another Flareon, that way you just have 2 lower energy attackers, you absolutely can. If you want to have a Deino on the bench and attach 2 energy to get that ready to turn into a Hydreigon, you absolutely can. What really makes this deck tick is the Noctowl. So Noctowl is the Jewel Seeker Noctowl. So if you have a Tera in play and you evolve the Noctowl, you get to search your deck for 2 trainer cards and put them in your hand. And you can do multiple Noctowls as long as you're evolving. So if you have 2 Hootoots prepped from the previous turn, you can double Noctowl and get 4 cards. So the deck is ready to go. It's an established engine. It just has a different a partner. That Tera Hydreigon can either do 120 to 3 Pokemon, or it can just do 200 and discard 3 to your opponent. Really depends on how you want to set that up. And in the video I did, in some of the matches I did for this week's video, I had a very quick turn 1 acceleration where I just overwhelmed my opponent. I had a matchup where the Obsidian was able to get around the Mimikyu because my opponent put a Mimikyu in the active but forgot he had a damage bench 2-prizer, and I'm like, I'm just going to attack your 2-prizer of Obsidian. Not sure what you want me to do about that. And then another deck that really just showed how the Flareon can just stabilize itself over turns. So it was a really good mix of different types of wins and different types of matchups you can do. And if you want, you can just pick this up and go, and you don't have to buy a single card from the new set if you just can't get the product.
Yeah, because I know you were talking about this deck with me, and you're like, yeah, I saw this do well at a City League during the Mega set. So this deck did well while all the other Mega cards were out there.
Yeah.
So that's why we're trying to like say, yeah, this is a great option because it already has somewhat results. Granted, it's in Japan during a City League, but those aren't results that we should negate. Those are basically oversized cups. So if you're planning on going to cup, this is something super doable. And it sounds like it's actually very straightforward once you actually understand just like the ins and outs of the deck. And really, I was talking to someone at my shop about this, actually, I think about a month or 2 ago. And he's the one that told me about this list, and I totally forgot about it until just now. And hearing you explain how the deck works and how you got your wins, I can see how it really works. And yeah, it's something that's different. No one's going to expect it. You have multiple ways of playing the deck as well. So yeah, go ahead. I would definitely get the cards for this and play it. Sounds like a fun deck.
Yeah, and it's an archetype that has seen well. Like Flareon Noctowl is not a new archetype. It's just a different partner. And even after, say, you watch the video or you see the list and you just want to take the Hydreigon out and just put another Pokemon that has a awkward attack cost or maybe something that you want to stabilize, absolutely. Flareon Noctowl is an engine I think a lot of players should explore a little bit, especially because Terra types are not getting any more prints. So we're going to be seeing them rotate out very quickly. So it's a deck that it can be fun because you can just add your own partner to it.
Yeah, and I love how the last couple weeks we've been really showcasing Hydreigon, either with the Tatsugiri deck and now with Flareon Noctowl. And it just shows how versatile this card can be. And really just like how versatile the game can be. Like you can find all these weird combinations and make it work.
Absolutely.
So with all that being said, Devin, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners and watchers this week?
Honestly, if you get onto your live account, have fun with the mega cards. Another thing that, just as a reminder to everyone, we are going to be getting a Mega Gardevoir and a Mega Lucario deck for free on your live accounts. So even if you don't buy the product for Mega Evolutions, definitely just play around with those decks, kind of get familiar with how strong the Mega Pokemon can be. The 3 prizers in the format is definitely something you're going to have to kind of relearn. And then just grind your ladder, get those more cards, and just play around with all the different Megas. Like we said, there's 10 new EXs coming out. And there's going to be a lot of creativity that I'm going to be looking forward to on the ladder, and I'm super excited for the Mega set. Not a fan of 3 prizers in the format, but I'm a fan for new stuff being added to the card pool. I want to see what happens. I have some ideas, and I'm excited to see what others bring to the ladder.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I can't wait to get my hands on these cards for IRL play. And honestly, I think that brings us to to our sponsor of the podcast, with Boxboy Games. If you are looking for these singles, they have both an online store and they're prevalent at a lot of card shows. So feel free to go up to them, try to see what inventory they have. Visit their online store. They have a lot of the bulk stuff that you need, a lot of the staples you need. They are people that collect and play the game, so they understand what players need and what staples are, and they try their best to really get what the players need. They help me out a lot when I need to get stuff. They're good friends of Devin and me, so we're really glad and honored to have them as a sponsor of this podcast. But yeah, just go out, support Boxboy Games. Details will be in the show notes below. But yeah, with all that being said, I'm excited for Mega Evolution. I've been kind of holding out. As Devin said, I started a spreadsheet, and I'm excited to see how we're going to really take these cards and make them our own. We're trying not to play the same decks that we're seeing online. We're trying to mix them up and bring different identities to them. So I'm super excited for that. Already have an Alakazam deck ready to go. I know we didn't talk about that one, but I'm super stoked for it.
Yeah, I'm more excited. I like the grass energy doubling. I'm really excited to kind of see what it can do. And there's a couple other archetypes that I've been kind of playing around with. So keep an eye on the channel. We have a deck list planned for the next 8 to 10 weeks. So we're gonna have plenty of stuff to do between now and Phantasmal Flames coming in the part of November. But it's gonna be, honestly, a new set is always great, especially when it's such a game-altering set like this. I think this is the strongest set we've had since pretty close to probably Scarlet and Violet base, because of the direction that Scarlet and Violet brought us. So I'm excited to see how the game's going to change.
Me too. So with all that, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. And until then, have fun playing those sneaky decks, y'all.
Bye, guys.